This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's just after 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started as people continue to kind of sign into the meeting. Welcome to our Open Science Subcommittee meeting. We'll start with introductions this morning, so I'll go ahead and start first, and then I'll try to go through the list, at least alphabetical in my list. So I'm Megan Schrant. I'm with FWC, FWRI's Fisheries Independent Monitoring Group, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Open Science Subcommittee. Marcus, do you want to go next?
Yeah, morning everybody. I'm Marcus. I am the program scientist at the Tampa Bay Estuary program. I'm the second co-chair for the subcommittee, and you'll be hearing from me in a minute.
Okay. Let's see. Maya, do you want to go next too? Because you're second on my list as an organizer.
I can do that. My name is Maya Burke. I'm the Assistant Director of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program.
Okay, I think we should be alphabetical from there on out. So Alex, if you want to take it away.
Good morning, everyone. This is Alex Manos with Pinellas County Environmental Management.
Andre?
Hello, my name is Andrei Skripnikov. I'm an assistant professor of statistics at New College of Florida.
And Blake.
Hi everyone, Blake Simmons. I'm an environmental social scientist at the Tampa Bay Estuary program.
Carrie Lopez.
Hi, I'm Carrie Lopez. I'm with FWRI. Can you hear me?
Yep. Good morning.
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Carrie Lopez with FWRI.
Thank you. Dave?
Hi, Dave Carlin with the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County.
Good morning. And Frank?
I'm also with FWRI. I work in fisheries dependent monitoring.
John?
Hi, I'm also with FWRI. I'm with Fisheries Independent Monitoring.
Juliet?
Hi, I'm Julie Christian with the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County.
Carrie?
Hi, I'm Carrie Flaherty-Walia, restoration ecologist with the Tampa Bay Estuary program.
Mike Wessel?
Yeah, Mike Wessel, Genetic Environmental.
And Mike McManus?
Hi, I'm Mike McManus. I'm an ecologist with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Thank you. And Mike Wheeler? Did anybody hear Mike?
His little mic icon popped up, but I didn't hear him.
I know. Mike, we can circle back to you if we need to. Oh, good morning. Okay, Natasha.
Hi, Natasha DeCrowell with Pinellas County Environmental Management. Good morning.
Thank you. Rich.
Hi, Rich Malinowski with NOAA Fisheries in the Southeast Fisheries Regional Office and in the same building with Tampa. I'm just listening in today. Thanks.
Welcome. Robin.
I'm Robin Spidell with the Southwest Florida Water Management District.
Whitney.
Hey everyone, I'm an outsider today in this group. I'm Whitney Sheffel, the senior scientist for the Pensacola and Perdido Bay's Estuary program.
Good to see you again, Whitney.
You too.
And Yanni. Oops, sorry. Yanni, did you want to say hi?
Oh, hi. No, I'm sorry. I didn't listen my name. I'm sorry.
Yep,
Yes, I'm
okay.
Shani. And I was invited here today to talk a little bit about our open site. So I'm living in Santa Rosa in La Pampa in Argentina, South America. So I bring some winter here.
Good morning. Thanks for joining. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Marcus now for open science updates from the Tampa Bay Estuary Program and partners.
All right, good morning, everybody. I think with Shani here, we have an international audience, so this is like a groundbreaking experience for the Open Science Subcommittee. So definitely happy to have you here, and we'll be hearing from her in a little bit, and then Andre after that. So I'll start with some announcements as usual. This is our second to last meeting of this year, so we're just chugging along and talking about open science and all the great things that it entails. I think many of you, I always start with this slide, of course, but I think many of you have seen it before. We may have some new faces on today, but I'd like to start with our roles and responsibilities, what the Open Science Subcommittee is all about, what we're trying to do. Three main things: obviously supporting the development of open science at the Estuary program and our partners in the region, but also hopefully nationally and internationally. That'd be fantastic. We also try to discuss priority indicators or research areas that we think need development or could benefit from the use of open science practices. So that's kind of my job at the Estuary program, but I like to look to this group to help us do that. And then we also have training activities periodically. We had an open science training earlier this year in person, which was fantastic, and you can go online and see those materials if you want to learn more about just the basics of open science. And we also have a guiding document with all these things laid out in detail that really try to solidify what this group is about. All right, so first update. In terms of priority research indicators, as part of my never-ending quest to bring data sets to the surface and think about things that we can use to track the health of Tampa Bay, I've been focusing recently on fecal indicator bacteria data sets, and we're still kind of a long ways off towards operationalizing these different data sets and rolling them out into different report cards or dashboards. But I have been busy sort of looking at the data that we have and thinking about how we can use them to supplement our existing reporting tools. So this is, of course, outlined in our CCMP. So this is our comprehensive conservation management plan that we use as a program with various action items that speak to all of the things that we care about for Tampa Bay. And in terms of previous work that has focused on FIBs in the Bay, there really hasn't been a whole lot that's been done other than some work that's been going on in the Hillsborough River and Alafaya River basins. Those two rivers are the largest two of four major tributaries entering the Bay, and they have been impaired for fecal coliform since the early 2010s. And as a result, there's been a basin management action plan developed for about the last 10 years. And there's a BMAP group that meets quarterly to talk about sort of status and trends of fecal indicators in these two basins. And so based off of that previous work, I tried to sort of develop some open science workflows for pulling in the data sets and then sort of reproducing some of the existing products in this initial report card. So if you click on this link, this actually goes to something that I think Ed put together way back in 2013. And I think there were intentions of having this be periodically updated since 2013, and I don't think it has, or actually no, it hasn't. But we're trying to build off of this as sort of the foundation for reporting on FIBs in Tampa Bay. So this, of course, is specific to these two subbasins or these two watersheds within the larger Tampa Bay watershed. But our goal is to build off of this and develop hopefully a Bay-wide report card that pulls in data sets from multiple different places. So along those lines, I know many of you are familiar with the TBEAP Tools R package. This is something that I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years. This is our our attempt at solidifying a lot of these workflows for pulling in different data sets and summarizing them and creating the report cards and indicators. And so I've been building out the FIB functions within the TBEAP Tools package. You can see ongoing progress here. I've got a vignette on the package webpage that describes that, has kind of the similar layout as a lot of the other kind of topical indicators that we've been working on. So this functions to import the data, and that's where I'm showing you here. So I have actually the challenging thing with the FIB data is it's collected by many partners that are monitoring water quality in the bay and our watershed. So a lot of the BMAP work for the Hillsborough and Alafia River basins use data from EPC, from Hillsborough County. Also, Polk County and Pasco County, I think, is involved in that effort. So when I was developing these functions to pull in FIB data, I wanted to not just look at sort of the EPC data, but other counties that are collecting this information. So Pinellas County, Manatee County, Polk County, Pasco County. And I have these functions that read in the data. This is directly from EPC, so this is very current in terms of going back to, I think, May of this year. But I've got this other function that actually queries data from the national database, so the EPA's water quality portal, which houses information nationally, but you can actually pull county level data from those 5 counties that are in our watershed. And so I've got this function that will query that database and pull down the FIB data for these organizations. So I'm trying to set this up as sort of a foundation for pulling in the data. There are some issues with like timeliness of the information, whether it's the most current, but in terms of operationalizing it, I think this is a good foundation moving forward. I have some very simple visualizations that I think can help us really think about how we want to portray the FIB data. This is a simple map where I'm looking at the EPC data by year and month for a selected location. So this is the Hillsborough Basin, and then the points are colored and shaped by where they are and where the particular breakpoints apply to the particular indicator. So sites that are marine are using Enterococcus, and sites that are freshwater are using E. coli, and there are thresholds appropriate for those different data sets. So again, this is just kind of reproducing what was done in the original BMAP report card, but trying to get us to think about how we might visualize this information. And then, of course, we have a report card, very preliminary, not really built out at all for the entire bay, but looking at, again, the 2013 report card, how we can use that as a foundation moving forward. And so what this is showing you is this is basically one function that pulls in the EPC data and sets up our typical stoplight graphic for particular stations. And these are stations that are within the impaired basins, the sub-basins of the Hillsborough. And so this is relevant for that location, but I think we can use this once we get a synthesized data set for all locations around the bay to not just look at individual sites, but maybe rolling that up to bay segments or water body or water boundaries around the different bay segments as a foundation for rolling that up for the whole watershed. So just putting that out there, this is something we're working on. We're probably 6 months to a year off from actually operationalizing this and having a more integrated baywide report card, but you can go to the TBEAP Tools website and play with the functions and see if they work or try them out. And we're definitely happy to get any feedback you all might have about how they work or how we might scale this up towards a baywide FIB report card. So that's it for the FIB stuff. I wanted to also highlight a new dashboard that we have. Blake Simmons, who's on the call, he has been working with RPC, the Regional Planning Council, to open up some of the results of their economic evaluation study. So I think many of you are aware, but RPC has been working on an update to the Tampa Bay economic evaluation, which was done previously 10 years ago, I believe, but they're trying to update it with new data sets and make the process more reproducible, so we can do it again in 5 years without reinventing the wheel. So as part of that effort, Blake has developed a TBEV dashboard to give you access to some of the results in that report. It's still in draft form, so it's going to be, we're actually soliciting feedback for it now, and it's going to be probably updated a little bit over the next week or so, but definitely wanted to bring that to your attention. If you go to this link down here, you'll see the dashboard. Looks very similar to our existing dashboards, but with some nice additions that Blake has added. But you can see that you can go to the results and look at different contributions of various economic sectors, maps of property value stuff, maps by ecosystem services, basically things that are inside the report, but we're making them more accessible on this dashboard. And there's also, information about the methods and ways you can download the data. So again, this is still in draft form, but we're trying to sort of spread the word so you can play with the dashboard and get a sense for how it works, and let us know that it's working, or if you have any suggestions. So if you have any thoughts about this, definitely reach out to Blake or RPC, Alana Todd. She's been leading this effort, so I'm sure that they'd love to hear your feedback on that. I'm actually going to call out Blake. Do you have anything else to add about the dashboard while I'm talking about this?
No, probably not. Just if anybody is interested in adding some feedback, specifically, we're looking to see, do the descriptions make sense to folks that haven't been thinking about, things like justified values of properties and sale prices and other sort of kind of jargony things that may exist. So if you just want to kind of have a look and let me know if something seems unclear or could just be, presented a bit differently for maximum understanding.
I appreciate that, Blake. Okay, and so the last thing I want to talk about, controversial subject. I've been integrating ChatGPT more and more into my workflows, and I wanted to just share some thoughts with this group. Pros, cons, how it could be useful, how it can be a detriment, but specifically with the lens towards coding. If you haven't played around with ChatGPT before, it's a very interesting tool. It's not, going to take over the world, but I think it can add some value to your workflows, particularly with how you code and how you maybe develop programmatic products, using ChatGPT to make you more efficient. So I've only been messing around with it for the last couple of weeks, but I found it very useful for some particular tasks, and I just wanted to mention those all to you if you're not using this resource. So I'm assuming that many of you know what ChatGPT is, but it's an AI-based tool that uses a large language model to basically, it's been trained on the entire internet, so they say up to 2021. And basically, it's a chat-based interface where you can ask it a question or tell it to do something, and it will give you a response in plain language, so it's very interpretable, but it gives you a meaningful response, sometimes meaningful, based on all of the information it was trained on. And if you want to know exactly what it's doing, I found this really useful summary from Stephen Wolfram that it's a very long summary, but it I think does a very good job kind of explaining what the large language model is doing, and kind of, in my mind, demystifies the whole inner workings of ChatGPT. So check that out if you want to learn more about how it's working. But I want to talk to you about a few things. Well, one, how it can help you become a better coder, how I'm sort of using it in my workflows, and also some things you should be aware of when you're using it. So I have 3 examples that I just want to show you, and these are meant to kind of give you a sense of what it's good at, and also, again, what you should be looking out for when you're using it. And I have, so these are the 3 questions that I'm just gonna do like a live demo on ChatGPT that uses these 3 questions that I think demonstrate the value of this resource. You can go to this R Markdown document that shows basically the questions I'm gonna prompt it with, and then the answers it's gonna give me. Now keep in mind, because the model is, I guess, probabilistic, you may not get the same answer as the ones I have here, because each time you give it a question, if you ask it the same question again, you'll get a different response, because it's just, you know, pulling text from a probabilistic model. So it's not going to be the same exact thing each time, which is good, because if you don't like the answer the first time, you can ask it to regenerate the answer and maybe see if you can get something different. So obviously my bias is R, so these are all kind of R-based questions, but just to show you one example, say you have a need to write some code, like you have some idea in your head, like, oh, I want to make a plot with a particular data set, but you don't know where to start. You could spend 10 minutes writing that code yourself, or you could say, okay, ChatGPT, write me some R code using the empty cars data set, which is an example data set that comes with R, to plot a comparison of miles per gallon versus car model. So these are variables in that data set. Ideally, if you're going to ask this question, you would know something about the data set you're going to ask it to create some code for. So you have to be specific, otherwise it will just give you some generic examples. But let's see what happens when I ask it this question. So it's thinking, it says, sure, I can help you with that. It's very kind. And then it says, to create a comparison of this plot of MPG versus car model, do this. And then it gives you some code. And it gives you a nice explanation of literally everything that it's gave you in the code. So you get this code and then an explanation, and you could literally just copy that. And then I'm going to go to my R Studio to show you that it hopefully will work. And then, hey, there's my plot. So this is the code it gave me. I just copied and pasted it. Here's, you know, it's loading ggplot. It's loading the data set, and it's creating me a bar plot of car model versus MPG. I think that's pretty cool. I probably would have spent 5 minutes just typing this up myself. So this is something that I can use as a starting point for building something better if I just need like a really general template for coding. Okay, so next question, if I want to be a little more specific, if I want to use like a data set that I am using on my own rather than just a generic data set, I can ask it something more specific. So the next question I had for it was, oh, this is also a Shiny example. So I've seen a lot of tutorials online and social media saying that you can use ChatGPT to make Shiny apps. So it does a really good job of creating those templates as well. So I have this question here that says, make me an R Shiny app. And again, using some specific language for the following data set, which I'll copy and paste a template for that, to plot a time series. So again, specific, plotting a time series of, this is actually in the data set I'm going to copy and paste. This is Secchi depth versus time with options to select by station. So this is kind of a key piece of information for a Shiny app. So I'm basically asking it to create a widget to select the stations that I want to plot. So I'm going to do semicolon and then copy and paste an example of the data set that I'm wanting it to create this example for. So I have this data set. This is an EPC data set that I've got in TBEAP Tools. And this is just a summary of basically what that data set looks like that I created from a simple function in dplyr called glimpse. So this is just saying, this is how many rows and columns in the data set, and these are the variables and the type of variable that it is. So I'm giving it the prompt, being specific of what I want it to do, and telling it this is the data set I want to create it for. And I do enter, and it takes a second, and then it gives me an explanation of what to do, then the code, and then, so here it's creating the server part of the Shiny app, the user interface part, and then running the app, and then it'll give you an explanation. So I'm going to copy this code, see if it works. So go back to my RStudio. So this is the code it just gave me. I'm going to get rid of all this because these are packages I already have. I'm going to try to run this, and it's going to say, oh, I can't do anything because it's giving me some generic placeholders for the data set. So I have to replace this data set with the one that I wanted to use. So I can say EPC data, and this is a data set that comes with TBEAP Tools. So I can load TBEAP Tools, and then once I do that, it should work. So I'm running it, and there's my app. So this created a Shiny app for me in seconds that, again, probably would have taken me as a coder 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to create. So I've got, it's a very simple app, but I've got, time series of SECI depth by station. And because I asked it to create an option to choose by station, it created this widget where I can then select whatever station I want to look at. So I think that's pretty cool because this saved me time, and I could use this now as a template moving forward. If you don't know anything about coding Shiny apps, you can get a bare bones app with a data set of interest in seconds, and you could use this moving forward. Okay, so the last question I want to ask, and this is, I think, another very cool feature. I oftentimes spend time converting other code from other programming languages to R. For example, if I'm taking a workflow that was developed using another language and putting it into R so I can use it in TBEAP Tools. So I recently had a challenge where I was using some legacy code from Ed for that FIB report card that he used 10 years ago with SAS. So I basically just said, ChatGPT, can you convert this SAS code to R? And it did it. It wasn't perfect. I had to edit a few things, but it did it in a matter of seconds where it would have taken me a lot longer. So I just have another example where I have some just generic SAS code. This is a very simple example, not the FIB example, but if you have some SAS code that you got from somebody or you've created it and you want to convert it to R, you can just copy and paste it and say, convert this SAS code to R. And then give it the code, press enter, and then say, oh, okay, now I'm going to convert it to R. So again, it gives you placeholders for reading in the data set. So you'll want to, if you have a data set you're working with. But basically, this SAS code imports a data set, selects some columns, filters it by some criteria, and then makes a plot. And that's all this SAS code was doing. So same thing, but then without having to, I don't write in SAS, so I don't know what this is doing. But very quickly, because I'm an R user, I could see, oh, this is what it's doing. And then I could, port this code over to my own workflows. So again, I think that's pretty cool. Will save you time. And these examples are, again, just kind of meant to show you the value of ChatGPT. I'm not saying this is the greatest tool ever invented. It's a valuable tool. It's one that I think will save you time if you learn how to use it in your own workflows. But I also want to sort of caveat that with some take-home messages too. So when I first heard about it, I mean, I think a lot of people, when they heard about it, were like, oh, this will eventually replace us as coders or data scientists or whatever. It will not. It's just a machine. It's dumb in the sense that it's just regurgitating information that it's been trained on. So you still have value as a programmer in the sense that you'll have to proofread that code and make sure it works. You'll have to do fixing bugs in it or otherwise changing the code to make sure it works for your needs. You also have to be very specific with your questions. You'll only get an answer that's as good as how you ask the question. So you'll notice that in the prompts I gave it, I was using specific variable names or specific verbs of things that I wanted ChatGPT to do. And it's also only current to 2021. So any like newer packages or new things that have happened in the world that's on the internet after 2021, it will not have any information on that. And I think the biggest critique that people have with it is that it can be biased because it's just trained on the internet. It's only regurgitating information. And as we know, the internet has plenty of misleading information out there. So take those answers with a grain of salt in the sense that you trust it only so much as you trust any information you find on the internet. So I want to close with this. So there's image generators out there that do kind of the same thing. They're trained on all of the images on the internet, and they can generate an image for you based on a prompt. So I basically said, create me an image of seagrass in Tampa Bay. And this is what it gave me. This is not what seagrass looks like in Tampa Bay. This is what a computer thinks it looks like. And so I just putting this out there that, this is the kind of garbage you can get if you're not careful with how you interpret the results. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about ChatGPT. I've, as usual, talked too long. I want to make sure there's enough time for our speakers. So I'll just, I'll save this for the end, but before I hand it over to Shani, just real quick, does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments about ChatGPT or any other stuff I talked about?
Natasha, do you want to share your points verbally or your comments?
Sure. I guess, so mine was regarding, all great topics, but mine was regarding the bib dashboard. So basically how I could kind of see this, because right now it kind of looks like it's almost a report card format for creeks, which would be kind of fun. And we're actually working on a Bay and Creek conditions dashboard with Water Atlas, so it might be something we could incorporate there. But also, I think there is a big open science data gap, and it might be something to talk to Anita Nash or somebody up at DEP regarding how to use it regulatorily speaking, because as you know, you can usually get what's routinely monitored and reported to DEP through their WIN Water Information Network, but sometimes there are limitations on what they want in there. But obviously, this would touch upon the stuff that's not in there, maybe the short-term special studies, source tracking, and whatnot. So I'm really curious to see how this kind of develops and how you do the sourcing. So looking forward to learning more about that and contributing however we can.
Yeah, any of the products that we developed, we don't intend on them having any kind of regulatory application. That's not our jurisdiction, but we hope that they can kind of inform those types of decisions. And as I said, these tools so far are very preliminary. They will probably look very different in their final form from what they look like now. But I just kind of wanted to get the juices flowing for how we might think about pulling in the data, integrating it in any kind of like cross-pollination we can have with the work that you're doing, Natasha, and the work that we're trying to do with the Estuary program.
Yeah, and that report card that Ed and Gerald developed back in the early 2010s was done, at the request of Anita and the BMAP group in the Hillsborough River Basin. And since that group has merged with Alafaya, and now we have BMAPs for Manatee as well. So the idea is just to provide support to those BMAP groups that are going on. And so, I appreciate hearing your feedback about the potential to incorporate some of the MST work that's being done, because we know that that's happening from academic partners and others. Not sure what the best way to do that is so that we don't, break the app and drive Marcus crazy with too much diverse kinds of data, but appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, and the MST stuff too is a whole other world that goes beyond the FIB data that I've been working with, but definitely want to be complementary to any other kinds of indicators that are being collected in Tampa Bay. All right, so I want to give a fair amount of time to our speakers, so I will hand it off to Shani now. I think I made you presenter, so you should be able to share your screen. She comes to us from our open site, and I've been following this group for a long time. She'll tell you a lot more about it, but I think it's a great example of community building around open source, and I invited her to speak to share her thoughts and experience with that group. So we're looking forward to it. So take it away, Shani.
Thank you, Mark, for the invitation. Let me know if you are seeing my slides. I already started sharing, but I don't know if
I'm not
working.
seeing them. Let me make you an organizer. I also have them on my end if you...
Yeah, please. I'm okay. I can tell you when you can change the slide. If that work? That's fine.
Okay. We'll do that then.
Okay. The link to the slides are on the Google Doc on the agenda, so you also have all people here, I think, they have access to that document. Okay, I will start then. The title of the talk is Our Open Science, Reproducible Open Science for and by all, and I will try to share with you what our open science is, how we evolve as organization and community, what things we are doing now, and then of course inviting you to work with us. So if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, the idea of our open science is to foster a culture that values open and reproducible research using shared data and reusable software. So this started in 2011, and please go to the next slide. At the beginning of our open science, the core team build software for research. The way to do this was as our packages. And after this first stage, we start to accepting contributions. So people who build their own packages or people who add features or bugs in our software. But this one-to-one mentoring and training and helping new contributors took a lot of time and effort. So one of the things we do was create a book with best practices for software development. And this is a living book. So we are always updating, improving, and adding information to this guide. Please go to the next slide. After that, we have this stage, build our own software, help other people to contribute to build their packages and their software. Then we evolve to a software peer review. And I put the statistical work between parentheses because we first start with general software, and then we also review the statistical methods that this software implement in their functions. So the idea of this software peer review is that it's transparent. Everything is on the open. We use GitHub issues to do all the review. So the author and the reviewers and the editor all know who is the one that are taking part of the process. It's constructive. Our goal is that the software have high quality, non-adversarial, and open. So one of the things that we have is that we don't reject any package. Now I'm going to give some more details about this. So we end up creating a process for standardized peer review software. They are the two links of our the statistical and the we're going to say the common peer review for putting some adjective to that, so if you can see more details. Please go to the next slide. This standardized process became an inspiration for the Journal of Open Source Software and by OpenSci. Go to the next slide. This work with this stage. First, people author of package made a pre-submission inquiry, and if the package fit our criteria, for example, our scope, we don't review package of any science, of every science, but we have some scope. Then we accept to review this package, and the review process begin. So we check usability, quality, styles, license, and we start a process to back and forth. We author, they start to do the changes that review requests, or explain why this change is not suitable for the packages. And after that process, we accept and budget the package, and that become part of our OpenSci suite. So of course we have an acceptance of 100% because the idea is to improve the software, is not to reject that. So this is the process we have. Please go to the next slide. So what and how we do this peer review? As I say, we use GitHub issues. So that looks like this picture here. We check this open source license. We check that the documentation is complete. We check that the package has high test coverage over the 75% of the code. We check that the code is readable, and we check the usability of the software. And one of the things that we did after the first time doing this review is to try to automate the kind of boring things that the review process has. So we have this bot that we can request an action, and the bot will take care of some tasks. For example, the bot will run several checks and give a summary to the editor and the reviewers about how the package comply with these things that we review. And only jump on the conversation between humans when we call it. And this is the other thing that this bot allow us is to don't need to switch to different platform. Everything happens in the same place. So you don't need to go to the PDF or into the GitHub repo and to the Word and to the email. Everything, all the communication, all the checks, all the tasks you need to do happen in the same place, which is nice when you are a reviewer and you are, of course, busy with a lot of other tasks that you have as a researcher. So please go to the next slide. This idea that we have about automation plus human review. There is a lot of things in the review process that are made by humans, of course. We try to get this idea to other projects that we have. Please go to the next slide. One of these projects is localization and translation effort that we are doing. So right now we start with the translation of our books. So this first blue or light blue process that you can see on the diagram is we have this book. We create a first automatic translation using TBEAP as a pull request on GitHub. Then we assign a field reviewer. This person does a review on things more linguistic and local things. Like, for example, when you translate from English to Spanish, you need to change the order of the adjectives because we don't use in the same place that English. Then you need to localize examples because some examples doesn't have any sense if you live in Latin America and the example come from Europe, for example. And then Spanish is a gendered language, and then we try to remove a gender mark. So that kind of stuff, we need a human being to doing that. Then we have a second reviewer, and then when we finish, we have an editor that read the entire book to try to do an homogeneous text and check that everything has sense and has the same flow and sound and tone. So then we merge and publish. We already did this with this developer guide that I mentioned before. So we have in Spanish and the community is doing the translation to Portuguese. When we start to do in this project, we also update a localization memory. So we have a translation guide that explains how to translate code, for example. When you take code and translate to Spanish, it's a good idea to translate variable names because that helps to understand the code. How you translate reference, go through the checklist of everything we need to check, how do you handle gender mark, and the style and format. So we have all this agreement on how we are going to translate, and we write this down and we update for all the different languages we are going to do this work. And then we also define a glossary because this is technical knowledge. So there is some words that for some languages you don't have a translation, or you decide don't translate because if you translate you are going to miss the meaning. For example, we don't translate pull request to Spanish. It is a pull request. We don't translate issue in the context of GitHub or Git or GitLab, but we translate issue in other contexts. So that kind of agreement you need to systematize and then use it for all the translation that you are going to do. We create some packages to do this. So Bubble Down and Bubble Cuarto. Bubble Down is the package that do this first automatic translation. I create the pull request of all the files you need to translate. We are using for books and for subtitles for videos, for example. And Bubble Cuarto allows you to have a quarto book, a multilingual quarto book. And now we want to start to work in multilingual package documentation. So the idea is that you can have the help of a package in different languages. So when you write the the question mark with the name of the function in RStudio, or in whatever editor you use to code, you get the help in the language you choose. So that is something that we are developing now. Please go to the next slide. And this multilingual publishing project has to do with an effort we are doing about include more people at our OpenSci and in their community in general. So for open source, English is in code, content, and community interaction the predominant language, even when only 5% of the world population speak English as the first language. So we are trying to do an effort to download language barrier for people to participate in open source and open science and in their community in general. So, and I like this this show because I feel really in that set of of talk, because for me it's really hard to speak in English, and sometimes I struggle with my thoughts and my words. And I also think like this actress, do you know how smart I am in Spanish? Sometimes I feel I'm a different person when I when I need to speak in English. So, and that happens to a lot of people. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Natasha. The other project that we have to support software development and software use is the R Universe. This is a project with the idea of improving publication and discovery of research software in R. Please go to the next slide. Our universe right now has more than 22,000 packages, R packages, more than 44,000 data sets, and 17,000 articles. The articles are the vignettes, the documentation that the packages has, and almost 2,000 maintainers and 20,000 contributors. One of the things that our universe do is automatic building the things you need to install packages from different operating systems. So you can use installed packages inside R when the package is at our universe. Why is this important? Because this is a lot of work, and now you have a place where this is made in an automatic way, and your users can use this even if the package is not in cron. You can do it when the package is at our universe. And some packages just can be on cron because it's breaking some of the rules. For example, when you have a package that have a data set or several data set, and you have a lot of data there, then you are going to break a rule about the size in cron, and you don't have size limit at our universe. And then you have a lot of measurings and monitoring tools that try to give you some idea how is the health and the evolution of your universe, or you set the packages of your packages. And we have tools for search and discovery, so you can search by topic, by author, by region, and we'll get as a result packages that are at our universe and do or has as a topic the words that you use on the search. Everything that is on cron and everything that is in bioconductor is also at our universe. The other sources are the GitHub or GitLab repo of the people who develop the packages. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The final project that I want to talk about is our champion program. So the idea is we believe that research software should serve everyone, and that means it needs to be sustainable, open, and built by and for all groups. Go to the next slide. The champions program is for people that historically and systematically are excluded from the open source and open science and the art community. So the idea is if these people wants to contribute to our open science and the broader open source and open science community, are welcome to this champions program. Go to the next slide. What we do there is to identify, recognize, and reward leaders in the community. Please go to the next slide. In the first call, this is the people who apply. There's this map with the countries that the people apply. So we do very well in Latin America. And yes, that's because I'm here and we do all the communication in English and Spanish. We need to improve our reach in Africa and Asia, but we have 74 applications, and this is the kind of project they will develop in a year that the champion program lasts. So more than 50% of the people wants to develop a new package, and then the other half and a half they want to be part of the review process of our OpenSci as a reviewer, and the other wants to submit a package to the review process. So this is really nice. For this first group, we choose 10 champions and 10 mentors, and the process come from packages for remote sensing, packages for handle agrometeorological data, packages for work with official national statistics from Argentina and Nigeria, packages for do statistical, different statistical aspect. One is, for example, with a lot of information from Brazil and to do transport analysis. So I think that the kind of packages we are building and reviewing and improving, and that will become part of our OpenSci, a very good add to our suite of packages and possibilities to use. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is the people who are part of the first group, and we have the second call already open until September 4. So if you know anyone that will be interested to be champion and mentor, please spread the word so they can apply and perhaps become part of the program. Go to the next slide. One of the things that we offer in the first half of the program is training. So we give 2 training on package development, a beginner's one and a more advanced one. Then we teach them how our OpenSci performs peer review. Then we teach them how to organize online event. One of the things we ask for the champion then is to do outreach activities in their local community. How to contribute to base R and how to develop software together. And then we have a training only for mentors on how to be a mentor. And this one about developing software together, that is how to use Git, GitHub, and RStudio. This was also something that we offer to all the people who apply, even to, especially for those that we say no, that we reject. So the idea is to provide them tools and a skill up. So if they apply again for the champion program and for the other fellowship of ambassador program that need this kind of a skill, they are better. They have better tools for that application. Go to the next slide, please. So if you want to participate at our OpenSci, there is a guide that can help you to find your path or the place that you fit in. And then if you don't have the time to read a book and say, okay, Shani, I'm not going to read a book to see how I can participate at our OpenSci, there is a blog post, a short version of only 2 pages with a summary of this information. Please go to the next slide. And these are resources, the web page, the Mastodon account, our forum for questions and answers about R and our packages, the info email, and if you want to chat with me, there is my Calendly. You can book a meeting and we can chat or you can write me on this email address. So thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you so much, Shani. I'm always inspired when I hear about the work that our Open Sci is doing, just pushing the envelope in terms of inclusivity and bringing people into the group that haven't been part of it in the past. Any questions for Shani? So I have a few questions if no one wants to bite. How many languages currently does the translation process accommodate for?
We finish Spanish for the book about how to develop package and do peer review, and we are working on Portuguese now. But TBEAP, which is the EI, the model that we use behind to do the first automatic translation, work with a lot of languages. The thing is that then we need to find the volunteers and the people who have time to do these two review that we do, and some editor that take care of the project in the general sense, right? If you ask me, after Portuguese, I hope we can follow with French, because with French we will reach 93% of African countries. So with Spanish and Portuguese and French, we reach a lot of people. And right now in the staff, we speak English, Spanish, French, German, but we don't have anyone who speaks Portuguese, for example. So we need people from the community that are bilingual that do this work. Fortunately, we don't even have this Portuguese translation in our schedule, and the people from Brazil come and say we want to do it, and they start to work on that, which is amazing, and it's really inspiring when people find the material useful. I want to do the translation. I have been part of several volunteers translation of several books. I mean, are for data science. I was one of the person who translated that to Spanish. But so what I mean is the platform, I think is ready for any language we want to. Then it is this aspect of human review that we need to organize. And try to be fair with the time that people offer to do this.
Very cool. Frank has a question in the chat. Do you want to chime in, Frank?
Yes, hello. So I've started coding in R kind of recently in like the past year, and I was wondering if R Open Science does any like R coding workshops to help new people with coding.
What we have now is all the material for the champions training. It is with open license, and that is published in our webpage, so you can access what we do on those workshops. But right now, these workshops that we did was for the people on the champions program, or the people who apply and we say no. We didn't open to the wide audience. I don't see why we shouldn't do it. I mean, that can be something that we can do, Frank. So thank you for the question. The other things that we do is we have community calls where we choose a topic, and in 1 hour someone shows like kind of what we see choose now with ChatGPT. There is several topics, and then we have people presenting and doing live coding or showing us how to use something. So we have this in a calendar. If you want to be aware of what is coming, you can check, and perhaps some of the topics are useful for you, and you can join this community call. And then we have some co-working sessions. In this one, we have a topic. These last 2 hours, you can come and be in the noisy room where we are talking about this topic. Can be package development can be how to use Target for pipeline. It can be doing spring cleaning of your code. It can be testing. So there is several topics. Or you can join and be in the quiet room and you do work that you need to do, and you have some other people to be accountable of that work that you need to do. It's very useful for remote workers. So that is what we have now. But I will bring this idea to also open this training to more people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And
Yes.
wonderful presentation too.
Thank you,
Frank. Yeah, and if you have if you want to get in touch with me as well, I've got several resources that I've done locally that could be helpful, in addition to all the great things that Shani has talked about. I want to make sure Andre has enough time. So if you have any more questions for Shani, her contact information is on the screen. Again, thank you so much for presenting to our group today. It's always great to hear about the cool stuff that you guys are doing.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much.
Yes, anytime. All right, Andre, you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I probably gotta make you presenter. Or I made you an organizer. Does that work?
So my sharing button is not really shining through.
Okay. I could do it on my end, just like the last presentation if you want.
To share, ask the organizer to make you presenter. So you've tried making me a presenter, right? It's not.
You are an organizer, and now you are a presenter.
Okay, there we go. All right. Now I do see a little opening. Let's see. Okay.
All right, I'm seeing it now.
Is that good?
Yeah. Just before you start, just some background. Been working with Andre for a couple years now. As you said, he's a stats professor at New College. We've done some really cool work with Twitter analytics in the past, and I invited him to talk today about a new project that we've been working on the last year or so about operationalizing Twitter analytics. So take it away, Andre.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, just in general for this opportunity to speak in front of this group. Hopefully some of that project will be of interest to most of you, and definitely gonna leave the room open for some feedback or just questions. So whenever anybody has anything, please feel free to jump in, unmute and jump in. So definitely wide open for that. Yeah, so the title of the talk is Scoping the Red Tide Twitter Analytics Dashboard. It's a project that is being funded right now out of a grant by Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund. And it's extended on some of the previous work we've been doing already, like since 2020, I believe, if I recall correctly, with Dr. Jennifer Schaefer. I believe she hopped on the call. So hello, Jennifer there. But to outline the main idea of this particular project that we're working on right now, main goal is to develop a Twitter analytics dashboard tailored towards environmental issue discussions, specifically the issues that are pertinent to Tampa Bay area. We go a little more down south as well, including Sarasota, just to kind of extend our reach a little bit. But kind of Tampa Bay area is really the primary focus. And when I say pertinent environmental issues, mostly our focus is on harmful algal blooms, red tide specifically, but we also did some scoping of other issues such as spills, right? Be it like oil spills, sewage spills, industrial spills, including, for example, Tampa Bay spill not Tampa Bay, Piney Point spill, right, in 2021, which also had implications for red tide, right? So exacerbating the red tide conditions. So it all kind of intertwines to a solid extent. But with that being said, really the primary focus of the dashboard, at least as of now, is on red tide, and that's based on a lot of the feedback that we've been getting from local regional managers and just from advisory ad hoc committee. So yeah, while we did a good amount of like literature review and scoping of other issues, red tide is still the primary target and focus of the dashboard as of now. And the intent of this whole endeavor is to try and fill a potential information gap for regional managers when deciding on best maybe communication strategies, how to like communicate certain information, certain warnings to the public, and maybe even the mitigation strategies like during disaster events, which we could safely call the red tide of 2018, that event kind of qualifying for this in regards to the extent of that particular red tide. So yeah, that's the idea. Now, to kind of give you all a idea of what a relevant tweet would look like, or relevant information that we're actually collecting and analyzing in this project. Here I'm showing you a couple, right? So you see kind of in bold text on the left, like that's one of the tweets, and you see the words red tide, and also you see a mention of an relevant area, right, which we're studying. So what we'd like is for both of those to be present in a tweet. Right, so the actual mention of the phenomena that we're interested in, such as red tide or like Carina brevis, whichever title is appropriate there. So the thing is, when we develop our search queries, we're incorporating all the possible namings, or at least to the best of our ability, we incorporate all of the relevant pretty much search terms, including red tide, Carina brevis, and so on and so forth. But also we do want a mention of a relevant area so that we could actually locally target red tide news that are specifically around the Tampa Bay area. And as I mentioned already, that we also go a little bit further down south to Sarasota area. So yeah, you see a kind of like a update tweet on the left about high levels of red tide being detected near Sarasota area beaches, right? And then on the right, you also see kind of like a news alert, health alerts about red tide being detected also in those Sarasota County beaches. And what you can see as well is kind of like the little thread, a discussion thread emanating from that original post by news station, right? And that discussion thread mostly involves kind of like regular citizens, and that is really where maybe most of the interesting information will lie as far as the true applicability of this dashboard is kind of to gauge public awareness, gauge what kind of terminology does the public use when, discussing the red tide related news updates. Because there's going to be a lot of tweets from news organizations, and we're obviously going to keep track of that, but also kind of having that separation between just regular news updates and also what people say about it will be some of the most, I guess, pivotal pieces of information to take out of this whole analysis. But that is what the relevant tweets look like, right? There should be a mention of the relevant phenomena and also of the location so that it ties into our Tampa Bay area, again, plus Sarasota. Now, to talk a little bit more about the initial work that kind of got started this whole direction of research, which is, using Twitter to potentially provide like some sort of an assessment of red tide conditions, or just to see what people are saying during red tide events. So we were doing a study of the 2018 huge red tide that happened in the Tampa Bay, Sarasota region. And more specifically, what we were doing, we were trying to gauge whether Twitter activity can provide us with a good sort of like reflection or pulse of actual real red tide conditions. So if you look at a picture on the right here, It shows you by county kind of panel, right? So the breakdown of how Twitter activity aligned with the actual real red tide conditions, such as dead fish levels, right, which were eventually kind of collected and that data was available. So we could kind of retrospectively look at whether the tweets at that point in time back in the second half of 2018, which is when this red tide event really unfolded. It was summer and fall of 2018, and so we're trying to see if it matches up with the actual dead fish levels, which is in orange over here. And for the most part, yes, it does. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it has a really strong correlation here. So like the purple and blue, they're just two different metrics of Twitter activity. I don't want to go too deep into detail right now about what they're trying to summarize, but the biggest idea for those was to try and figure out pretty much the activity of Twitter users from that particular area, from that county, right? And whether it corresponded to dead fish levels observed on the beaches of that county. As you can see, for the most part, kind of like there is a solid correspondence with peaks in dead fish levels observed, such as, for example, in Pinellas, there was a considerable peak that got matched quite well. Manatee, a couple of peaks kind of got missed, but the first one definitely got respective Twitter activity. And Sarasota, pretty solid matching, like because Sarasota did get most of the action as far as the actual red tide conditions there, and there is some pretty solid correspondence with the um, real conditions such as dead fish levels. And you can see the correlation of about zero 0.8, which is a really strong indicator of correspondence between Twitter activity and the local conditions. Then we also did a couple of other metrics, which is, for example, measuring the amount of tweets and also kind of doing a relationship of the amount of tweets against the distance to the impacted area. And what you can see from this plot is that the further you are from the area of impact, from the area most impacted by the red tide, the less tweets are generally observed. So again, this is another gauge for Twitter being a pretty good reflection of the area being impacted by the red tide. And also, not just the sheer volume of tweets, but the type of tweets that are being posted is affected by your distance from the impacted area. The further you are from the impacted area, generally the less original content people would post. So over here we're talking about retweet percentage, and retweet percentage or retweets are generally just posts that don't involve any original thoughts, so to speak, right? So you're just literally copy pasting what the other person has posted, right? You're literally retweeting what somebody else has already put out there. And as you can see, the further you are from the area of impact, the chances are increased of you just doing a retweet rather than posting something original of your own, maybe like describing your own experience or having your own opinion to share. And that kind of makes intuitive sense. The further you are from the area of impact, the less you might be have less interest you might have, less things might have to say, and so on and so forth. So that was kind of some of the stuff that we did before that paved the way towards us eventually, doing this dashboard project, or at least thinking of it. Then a couple of other things we did was doing like sentiment analysis, to besides just quantifying the volume of tweets and activity on Twitter, also trying to, assign a score to each tweet of how, like most of the stuff about red tide was negative, which is not shocking, I feel like, to anybody in the room. But there was still levels to it, and that's the reason why we would assign like different values. Let's say like all the negative stuff would have a negative sign to it as far as the numerical value. But for example, the word bad would not be as negative as the word disgusting, for example, right? So like that's where you would assign levels to the terminology that people were using. And yeah, again, like this word cloud is kind of summarizing all the polarized words. When I say polarized, it's a word with a specific sentimental connotation, right? So dead, smell, kill, like those are all words with negative connotation, hence they're in red. And then words like clean, beautiful, support, so on and so forth, those are in green. Those have positive connotation. As you can see, red dominates quite clearly. Besides like doing those kind of word clouds, which just look at a single word at a time, we also did kind of full-blown like looking at a tweet as a whole, right, and assigning it a sentiment value based on like phrasing and based on all those levels that we designate to pretty much the polarized words. And it did give us some again reasonable results. I don't have them right now over here, but it was showing like the more red tide was present in the area, the more negative sentiment was out there. With that being said, even with all that effort that we put into like quantifying the sentiment of tweets, it didn't really improve as much on the correspondence between Twitter metric and the actual red tide conditions. So like it didn't improve over just a basic volume of tweets, which is much easier to obtain. You don't have to pretty much calculate the sentiment. You don't have to go through all the kind of like assignment of scores and so on and so forth. It's just simply, okay, if there is a tweet or a retweet, that's +1 in terms of the metric. Yeah, and so those are kind of some of the takeaways from that previous project. And then one other thing that we did was actually looking at the types of concerns being brought up by the Twitter users, such as like the main 3 general topics that we were looking at were environment, health, and economy. A big part of the reason why we were looking at those 3 specifically because we were kind of copying off of a work that was done back during the 2005 Florida Bloom, where they were also looking at like those 3 general areas of discussion, and they ended up kind of summarizing articles being posted back then. Obviously, Twitter was not a thing, so instead, what they were looking at was pretty much articles and news stories about red tide and what kind of terms were mentioned in those stories. And the hierarchy of mentions does correspond with what we ended up finding, right? So the environment is the most mentioned, which does make perfect sense as red tide is an environmental issue. Then health related terms were second most mentioned, and then the economy was the third. Again, this hierarchy corresponds with what was found in that study for the 2005 blooms. In our case, we kind of confirmed it for the red tide event of the 2018. And mostly that was done in a relatively rudimentary way of just doing, okay, we have a vocabulary of terms. How many times did the term from environment vocabulary show up? How many times did the term from health vocabulary show up, and so on and so forth. Here it is, some other takeaways, right? So in terms of like the types of things that are being brought up by people or discussed during the red tide event, which can also help, again, fill some of the information gaps and get some more insight into the hands of regional managers, right? And that's kind of to summarize some of the main takeaways from that previous project that we worked on. So like right now, what I described to you was the previous project that we did even before this dashboard, right? Which kind of paved the way for us eventually applying for the grant and getting the dashboard project grant funders, because we did publish a paper based on those results that I just showed you, which pretty much demonstrated Twitter activity being a nice reflection of actual red tide conditions, both in space, right, by county, as I showed to you, and over time. As I kind of show you those time series plots, and how the Twitter activity was matching up with the observed dead fish levels. The increased tweet volume and increased negative sentiment would be observed when the red tide conditions get worse. Also insight into public concerns in terms of the amount of mentions that each topic would get, like the hierarchy of those that I just described. And some of the potential applications that we're thinking about to kind of capitalize on would be identifying the state of public knowledge, kind of public awareness about red tide issue, right? So in general, kind of how much does the public know about the health implication, about potential causes, and so on and so forth, right? And you can also potentially gauge effectiveness of any social media campaigns if you are running one of those, right? So again, that is one of the biggest things that can be really taken out of here is kind of to see what public knows. And also potentially could support kind of management response in the absence of field data, which is maybe a little bit more of a reach because we definitely don't expect Twitter to supplant the actual real measurements, the real data like dead fish levels or cell counts for Carina brevis and so on and so forth. But sometimes it could happen that somebody like just observed like dead fish on the coast and like posted about it and it kind of took off on Twitter or something along those lines. That can also be a possibility there. So, and now to talk about the current project, we're planning to actually create a dashboard that will kind of accumulate all of those metrics in one place. We will kind of be pulling data from the by using the Twitter API on a daily basis, and pretty much putting it out there, making sure that there are options to pick. Let's say like you want to look at specific county, you want to look maybe at specific time period, maybe tweets only from a specific subgroup of users, let's say like only media or only regular citizens, etc. And so, speaking of all of that, we're discussing all those features and functionality with the ad hoc advisory group. We have quarterly meetings there and pretty much engaging the partners from across the board as far as all the counties that I've already mentioned here. So we definitely want to produce a tool that fits, some of the pretty much the expectations and the use cases that people that we're really targeted towards would need, right? So that is the hope here. Now to kind of quickly show you a way too early mock-up dashboard, right? So again, the project, we're yet to reach the phase where we fully involve ourselves in the development of the dashboard. So far, we're just doing kind of separate studies or like scoping of the issues and creating metrics separately. But there is a little bit of a progress of just like creating almost like a bit of a skeleton of some of the ideas that we have. And as I described to you before, you have like options to pick a location. Say like Tampa is one of the more active areas. So let's say we pick Tampa here. Then you can pick a account type. Let's say right now it's just everybody, all the Twitter accounts, and then a time frame, right? Right now it's just year by year, but obviously we're gonna, once the proper dashboard is created, it's gonna be more refined in terms of the amount of selections you will have.
Andre, we're
yeah.
just still seeing your presentation, not the
Oh,
dashboard.
Okay, let's see. I wonder if I could switch.
But we're
Okay.
we're also quickly running out of time, so if you can summarize.
That is fair, but I do think that showing the dashboard, I think if nothing else, that would be definitely a big one. Okay, let me see. The environmentalist. Okay, share. Okay, my bad. So here it is. So you have the options to select a location option. So okay, let me just make sure. Can everybody see?
Yes.
No? Okay, perfect. Time frame, account type. So as you can see on the left, there's like a little map that we intend to make more interactive, where one could actually kind of flip around through the counties. On the right-hand side, you see the pretty much the tweet scroller, right? Which gives you like a full context of the tweet and sorts them by popularity, maybe by the most retweeted and so on and so forth. Right, and then you can kind of flip through them, if you'd like there. And then also some summaries, right? Some kind of metrics that summarize all the, let's say, most active hashtags, right? So maybe through like over the last month or over the last week. And so you can pretty much look at that type of data. So we're working on some of that, like creating those word clouds. So over here, what you may see is the right now it's, even though we picked the year 2018, really the dashboard hasn't been adjusted. So right now this word cloud corresponds actually to the entire 5-year period from about 2018 to like 2022 including. And that's the reason why Piney Point pops up, is because it happened in 2021, but it was a really hot topic of discussion and being mentioned and brought up right alongside Red Tide a lot, because there was clearly a lot of connections between the two. And so, yeah, so that is just some of kind of like rudimentary um, features that we were thinking about. Yeah, there's like sentiment analysis, which is not really developed as of now. It's just kind of put in there last second. But we're definitely going to be working on developing more of those features. And I guess one of the things that we did want before we kind of wrap that one up, I did want to kind of maybe ask to the audience here if that looks like something that could be of use to you, of interest to you. Maybe there is some features that, off the top of your head, you really would like to see on a dashboard like that. We would definitely appreciate hearing from you if anybody has any thoughts right now.
Yeah, so thanks, Andre. This is obviously not a finished product, so we're kind of just showcasing the concept at this point and hoping to, I guess, make a broader request for potential ideas on how we can make this a more useful product for end users. So definitely we'll accept any thoughts, comments, ideas, questions you all might have at this point.
Yeah, would definitely appreciate those. And yeah, I think, I mean, I could definitely talk a little bit more about the, I guess, open science component of it all, like as a very quick rundown. I know that right now I'm not sharing the screen probably, but just to do like a quick rundown, that we do post some of our findings, some of our deliverables on the TBEAP library, right? So for everybody's kind of publicly available library there, which includes like the way we develop Twitter search queries and things of that nature. And then also we do upload data and source code to GitHub. Definitely we have the publicly available GitHub page for that previous project that I mostly talked about in this presentation. We don't just yet have an publicly available GitHub page for this project, just because we are still, again, working on it, or it's still in development. And also there are sometimes some privacy concerns in terms of the Twitter user data one would post online. So like at least there should be effort made towards, trying to not disclose like user information to the best of your ability. So we did kind of our best to secure the Twitter user data in the previous project, right? And that's why we felt kind of pretty safe to post it out there. With this one, we're still kind of keeping it a little under wraps, and then we'll make sure that it's all taken care of by the time it's made public. And we're intended to make the dashboard itself publicly available. And also we are keeping it fluid as far as being to kind of like adjustable to the landscape, ever-changing landscape that is Twitter currently. I have a feeling that a good amount of you have heard about the proceedings over the past year plus, and we're already feeling some of it, right? Because the free options for use of API have been, well, eradicated, let's put it that way, right? Because it used to be at least an academic research track that you could apply for and get free access, which is what we capitalized on last year. But now all of those free tiers are no more, and now we have to kind of readjust our code to the new conditions. But yeah, that is something that we're working on, and also some of the stuff that we already did in the first phase of this project, even though we did it for Twitter technically. But some of the framework that we've built out, like the cookbook to come up with search queries, right? So those things could be transferred over to potentially an alternative platform if really need be. And yeah, so that's just about all I really wanted to say. Apologies for kind of pushing beyond a little bit, but yeah, sincerely appreciate all your attention. Yeah.
It's all good, and my apologies for not allocating enough time for the presentation. But yeah, so this project will probably wrap up in the next year, I believe. We have one more year of funding, so be on the lookout for that as it matures, and will be something that you all can use. Thank you all for hanging on a few extra minutes over time. One more announcement is that our last meeting of the year will be November 1st, 10 to 11:30 a.m. So make sure that's on your calendars. I've also already got speakers lined up, so I'm way ahead of the curve on that. So kudos to me. And I'll be sending towards the end of the year, I will be sending out potential dates for 2024 meetings. So again, thank you all for being on the call today. As always, you can reach out to myself or Megan about any open science subcommittee questions. Thanks again to our speakers, Andre and Shani, for their great talks, and we will see you next time.